Welcome to today's video. In this video, I'm going to talk about file handling in C. So far, what we have learned was reading from the screen and writing to the screen. But there's a problem. Whenever you close the console window, all the data is gone. You want to make sure you can write the data to the disk so you can get back to it, review it, or sometimes the data is big. You can't expect the user to enter 100 numbers on the screen. You want it to be in a file and read it from a file. Reading from a file and writing to a file is something that engineers will use a lot. Let's see how it works. Remember when we had integer or float, we would just type int var1, for example, and then the keyword int means that var1 is an integer. We have the same thing for files as well. And the data type is, instead of int, is file star. So file star is a data type for a file. But instead of naming it var1, you can of course name it anything, but instead of naming it var1, I will name it file pointer. There's a function in stdio library called fopen. I'm going to use this function to open a file. You can use this function to give the address and the file name here on the first string, and on the second string, the result of this fopen function has to store in a file variable. So I'll store it in file pointer. So let's say here a file star should be here. So what I say is file pointer is equal to fopen, and for the name of the file, if I don't specify address, it will create it in the project folder. I'll show you that. For the name of the file, I'll create engm1081.txt. And for the mode, we have different modes for creating file using C. But what is mode? Imagine the file pointer is the blinking cursor we all are familiar with. You see my blinking cursor here between the quotations. So if the mode is W, which is short for write, it means search for the file. If you find it, overwrite the file and return the pointer to the beginning of the new file. If the mode is R, which is short for read, it means search for the file. If you find it, load the file to the memory and return the pointer, which points to the first character in the file. Be careful you cannot edit the file in this mode. And the next mode is A, which is short for append. It means search for the file. If you find it, load the file to memory and return the pointer which points to the last character in the file. So in this code, we haven't created any file yet, so let's put W to make sure a file is created in this line, and semicolon. So let's see what happens if I compile and run this code. Okay, I get an error. The error says the function or variable may be unsafe. This is an error due to Microsoft is fixing some of the errors with the functions in C, but you can ignore this error, and how to do it is just go to project, hello world properties, or your project name properties. Mine is hello world, so I'll click on this. And then you go to C++ here, and then go to preprocessor. In preprocessor, just add, I'll put it in the description so you can just copy paste it here. Just add after, be careful you have the semicolon here. After the semicolon, just paste CRT secure no warnings and click OK. Now if I press Ctrl F5, you see that my code compiles and without any errors. So if I press any key, now a file engm1081 should have been created in my project directory. You can open your file explorer and go to your project directory, or you can just right click here and click on open folder in file explorer. And when you open it here, you see that engm1081.txt appears on the project folder. Okay, but you see that the size is 0 kilobytes. It means that this file is empty. If I double click on it and open it with Notepad, you see that the file is empty. And we want it to be empty because we just created the file. We haven't put anything in it. Print to a file, it's easy. Remember the printf function? To print to a file, just add an F to the printf. So I will write F printf for printing to the file. And start writing my string, in this case, hello world. And /n to go to the next line and semicolon. Okay, you might ask, how C would know where to put this? And you're correct. And if you see, Visual Studio is erroring me that too few arguments in the function call. It means that you need to give me some more details for this function call. And I will add file pointer here. So I'll tell C that, you remember the blinking cursor? The blinking cursor is now at the beginning of the file engm1081.txt. Put hello world /n in that position for me. Okay, let's see how it works. Ctrl F5 to compile and run the code. The code has executed. And let's see what is happening. Okay, I will right click here, open folder in the file explorer. And you see the file is not 0 kilobytes, it's 1 kilobyte. Wow. Let's put it in the Visual Studio. Okay, hello world is now printed on the file. I want to put the file, so this is how you put the file side by side to review. And it could be smaller. Okay. So you see that hello world is being printed on the screen. One thing to consider that we have opened a file on memory in our program and we haven't closed it. Sometimes doing it with big files may cause our program to crash and we use a lot of memory that is not necessary. So always, when you finish working with a file pointer, just call the function fclose. And the input will be the file pointer. And you close the file that you have already opened. So this is a program to create a file, print something to it, and close the file. So what about different modes? If I use R, it means read. Open this engm1081.txt for reading. And then the file pointer will point to the first character when we load this file into memory. But because it's in read mode, we're not allowed to modify. So if I change this hello world to something else, for example, engm, this engm won't be printed on the file because we opened it in the read mode. And if I compile and run this code, you see that nothing has happened to the file. So when you want to open a file and you want the user not to touch the file, R is the best choice. You just want it to read the file. You don't need to modify it, so then use R to open it. The other mode we talked about was append. So this will open the file, put the cursor at the end of the file, which is in line 2, and it will print engm for me in the second line. Let's see if that happens or not. If I say Ctrl F5 and press any key, you see that the next line is added to my engm 1081.txt. So one thing to remember, guys, if you open the file using applications like Notepad, the file wouldn't update automatically when you change your code. But if you open it with a text editor, with an advanced text editor like Visual Studio, it will update automatically. So be careful that I'm seeing the update right when I'm compiling the code, because I'm opening this text file using Visual Studio, which is an advanced text editor. Imagine in this file I had two integers, for example 10 and 12. And I want to write a code that reads these two integers and writes the output. Okay. Let's get rid of this line. So we wanted to open the file for reading. And the function for reading is, you guessed it, it's scanf. We wanted to read from the screen, and fscanf is when we wanted to read from the file. So fscanf, like fprintf, we need to give the file pointer. We need to tell C where is the file pointer, where is the blinking cursor. And the next is we wanted to read two integers and store them in variable 1 and variable 2. Of course, there's an error because we haven't declared variable 1 and variable 2, and we wanted to put it in the address of variable 1 and 2. I'll go ahead here and declare integer var 1 and var 2. And the semicolon here. So here I will read 10 and 12, and I will store it in var 1 and var 2. And let's declare another integer called result. And here result is var 1 plus var 2. And I'll print the result to the screen. %d plus %d equals to %d. The first %d is var 1, the second is var 2, and the third is result. And we can close the file before the result, because after this, we don't need to do anything with the file. We have our var 1 and var 2, and we don't need the file anymore. Okay, if I compile and run this code, oh, we need it /n here. So Control F5 to compile and run the code. You see that 10 plus 12 is 22. So we happily read the text file, we read 10 and 12. And if I change this, for example, to 15 and compile and run the code, you see that 15 plus 12 is 27, and we have the good results. But what if I wanted to add this line to this file? Okay, so I'm going to open the file again, but with another mode. If I wanted to add it to line 2, I wanted to open it in append mode. Okay, I'll open it in append mode, and instead of printf, I'm going to use fprintf to write it to a file. And if I'm using fprintf, I have to specify the file pointer, which is here, and then my string, and then arguments that I use in my formatted strings. And the next thing is to close the file. Okay, so if I compile and run this code, Control F5, and press any key, you see that the next line, 15 plus 12 is equal to 27, is now printed in the file. I can, of course, do it and save it in another file, but we'll talk about that later. Let's get rid of these files. I wanted to show you guys something. Okay, so in this code, I'm opening engm1081.txt for reading, and I'm reading the first two integers in the file. What happens if the file doesn't exist in the project folder? If I add Reza to the name of the file, I know that such file doesn't exist in my project folder. So what happens if I say Control F5, which is compile and run the code? Okay, I'll get debug exertion failed. Let's abort. I'll put a breaking point here and start debugging to see what is happening to my code. So as you can see, my three variables are here and they're not initialized. If I step over, you see keyword null, N-U-L-L, all uppercase. This is a keyword in C that says, I don't know where's the blinking cursor, because I couldn't find the file. And now if I step over the next line, which is scanf, I wanted to scan two integers, but there is no file and there are no integers. And the debug exertion fail error will come. If I say abort and get out of debugging, now I see that the result of file pointer was null. Let's see if the correct name was here. What will happen to the file pointer? What will be the result of file pointer? So we're going to debug the code again. And as you can see, we're at the same line. If I step over this open line, I won't get null anymore. I'll get an address of so you don't need to know what is this, but just hear me out that this is an address. This is the address of the blinking cursor, which is at the beginning of the file. But this way, if I step over, the code will work. We'll read var1 and var2, and then it'll close the file and return 0 will finish the program. And we stop debugging. So we need to be careful that if file pointer is null, the program would crash. We'll add a check to my program. If file pointer is null. And as you can see, the color change in Visual Studio means it's a keyword that Visual Studio know what is it. And I'll print a message to the screen to the user that the file does not exist. And semicolon. And of course, if the file exists, we'll go to the else condition. And in else condition, I will scan the file because I want to scan it if it exists, and I want it to close it if I have opened it. And let's also put a message here to know if the file exists or not. Printf file, the file does exist, /n, and semicolon. Okay, so Control F5, and you see the file does exist is being printed on the screen. So we do the scanf and we do the fclose. Let's close this and add something to the file name so we make sure that the file does not exist in our project folder. Control F5. This time our program won't crash. It says the file does not exist. And that's a good practice to make sure your program won't crash if the user input changes. That concludes our video regarding file handling. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And as always, see you in the next episode.